Shinzo Abe, September 21, 1954 to July 8, 2022. On July 8, 2022, Japan was rocked by a tragedy that stunned the entire world. Shinzo Abe, the nation's longest-serving prime minister, was assassinated in broad daylight while giving a campaign speech in Nara. A lone gunman used a homemade firearm, bypassing Japan's famously strict gun laws. Abe collapsed instantly and later died at just 67 years old, leaving behind a nation in disbelief. Political killings are almost unheard of in Japan, making his violent end all the more shocking. Before his death, Abe had carved out a complex legacy. He served as Japan's prime minister twice, first briefly on 2006 to 2007, and then from 2012 to 2020, making him the country's longest-serving leader. Known internationally for his economic reforms, dubbed Abenomics, he sought to pull Japan out of decades of stagnation through bold policies. Supporters saw him as a strong statesman who restored Japan's presence on the global stage. Critics, however, accused him of whitewashing history and pushing for controversial military reforms. Abe was married to Aki Abe, a well-known socialite and radio host who often voiced opinions at odds with her husband's policies. The couple never had children, but their partnership fascinated the Japanese public, with Aki's outspokenness sometimes making headlines on its own. A lesser-known fact is that Abe came from a family steeped in politics. His grandfather, Nobusuke Kishi, also served as prime minister, while his father was a foreign minister. For many in Japan, Abe represented not just himself, but an entire political dynasty. Though his policies will be debated for decades, the way he died became one of the defining moments of modern Japanese history. Shinzo Abe's assassination served as a grim reminder that even in a society where violence is rare, no leader is untouchable. Kobe Bryant, August 23, 1978 to January 26, 2020. On January 26, 2020, the world froze in disbelief when news broke that basketball legend Kobe Bryant had died in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California. Alongside him was his 13-year-old daughter Gianna and 7 others, all of whom perished when the helicopter went down in foggy conditions. Kobe was only 41 years old, and Gianna's death at such a young age added to the heartbreak. Kobe Bryant's impact on basketball and culture was immeasurable. Drafted straight out of high school in 1996, he went on to become one of the greatest players in NBA history. Over 2 decades with the Los Angeles Lakers, he won 5 NBA championships, 2 Finals MVPs, and 1 League MVP. Known as the Black Mamba, Kobe was revered for his unmatched work ethic and killer instinct on the court. Off the court, Kobe was a family man. He married Vanessa Lane in 2001, and together they had 4 daughters, Natalia, Gianna, Bianca, and Capri. His devotion to Gianna's budding basketball career had become a highlight of his later years, with many believing she would carry on his legacy. A fun fact about Kobe is that he was multilingual. He spoke fluent Italian, having spent part of his childhood in Italy where his father played professional basketball. He was also an Oscar winner, taking home an Academy Award in 2018 for his animated short film Dear Basketball. Kobe's sudden death left the world in shock and grief. For fans, it wasn't just the loss of a player. It was the loss of a cultural icon who had inspired millions with his relentless pursuit of greatness. Jeffrey Epstein, January 20th, 1953 to August 10th, 2019. On August 10, 2019, financier Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. His death was officially ruled a suicide by hanging, but it immediately sparked controversy, with countless conspiracy theories circulating about whether he had been silenced. Epstein was 66 years old at the time of his death. Epstein was infamous rather than celebrated. He was known for his wealth, connections to powerful figures, and the sprawling criminal investigation into his sexual abuse of underage girls. His private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands became notorious as a symbol of his crimes. Though he held no formal awards or titles, Epstein was once well-connected in elite social circles. He mingled with politicians, royalty, and celebrities, though most quickly distanced themselves after his arrest. Epstein never married and had no children, though he was often linked romantically to younger women. He split his time between lavish properties in New York, Paris, and Palm Beach. A chilling fact about Epstein is that just weeks before his death, he had been placed on suicide watch, only to be removed shortly before he was found dead. The unusual circumstances fueled years of speculation and ensured his name would remain infamous long after his death. Fidel Castro, August 13, 1926 to November 25, 2016. On November 25, 2016, Cuba announced the death of Fidel Castro, the revolutionary leader who had ruled the country for nearly half a century. Castro died at the age of 90 in Havana, outliving many of his enemies and surviving countless assassination attempts, mostly attributed to the CIA. Castro's life was defined by his role in the Cuban Revolution. In 1959, alongside Che Guevara and his brother Raul, he toppled the U.S.-backed dictator Fulgencio Batista. From then on, Castro served as Cuba's prime minister and later president, establishing a one-party communist state that defied the United States during the Cold War. As celebrated by some as a hero of anti-imperialism, Castro was equally reviled by critics who condemned him for political repression, human rights abuses, and driving millions of Cubans into exile. Castro married twice and had several children, though details about his family life were often shrouded in secrecy. His brother, Raul Castro, eventually succeeded him as Cuba's leader. A striking fact about Fidel Castro is that he holds the Guinness World Record for the longest speech ever delivered at the United Nations, 4 hours and 29 minutes in 1960. When news of his death broke, Cubans filled the streets, some in mourning and others in celebration, illustrating just how deeply polarizing he remained until the very end. Muammar Gaddafi, June 7, 1942 to October 20, 2011. On October 20, 2011, Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi was killed during the final stages of the Libyan civil war. Captured by rebel forces in his hometown of Sirte, he was beaten and executed after more than 40 decades in power. Gaddafi was 69 years old at the time of his death. Gaddafi first came to power in 1969 after leading a coup that overthrew Libya's monarchy. He went on to rule the country with an iron fist, blending elements of socialism, Arab nationalism, and his own eccentric ideology outlined in his Green Book. His flamboyant style, from his desert tents to his female bodyguards, made him one of the most recognizable leaders in the world. Internationally, Gaddafi was notorious for sponsoring terrorism, including the 1988 Lockerbie bombing. However, in his later years, he attempted to restore relations with the West. At home, he used Libya's oil wealth to modernize infrastructure, but was accused of hoarding riches while much of the population lived in poverty. He was married once and fathered several children, many of whom became controversial figures themselves. A strange fact about Gaddafi is his obsession with staying youthful. He reportedly underwent numerous cosmetic treatments and claimed to have secret cures for aging. His brutal death, caught on video and spread across the internet, symbolized the violent end of his regime and remains one of the most shocking downfalls of any modern dictator. Saddam Hussein, April 28, 1937 to December 30, 2006. On December 30, 2006, former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein was executed by hanging after being convicted of crimes against humanity. His execution took place in Baghdad and was filmed, with footage leaking online
sparking intense global reactions. Hussein was 69 years old at the time of his death. Saddam had ruled Iraq from 1979 until 2003, when he was toppled during the US-led invasion. His regime was infamous for its brutality, including mass killings, torture, and the use of chemical weapons against civilians. Despite this, Saddam maintained a cult of personality, portraying himself as Iraq's strongman. Internationally, he was known for sparking wars, most notably the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s and the invasion of Kuwait in 1990, which led to the Gulf War. Saddam married twice and had several children, some of whom played roles in his regime. His sons Uday and Qusay were themselves feared figures until their deaths in 2003. A darkly ironic fact is that Saddam once published a romance novel titled Zabiba and the King, widely believed to be a political allegory for his rule. Saddam Hussein's execution marked not only the end of his life, but also the final closure of one of the Middle East's most feared dictatorships. On June 25, 2009, the world lost one of its greatest entertainers when Michael Jackson died at his home in Los Angeles at just 50 years old. His sudden death from acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication shocked millions of fans and ignited endless controversy surrounding the role of his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, who was later convicted as involuntary manslaughter. Known as the King of Pop, Jackson's influence stretched far beyond music. From Thriller, the best-selling album of all time, to his groundbreaking performances in music videos, he revolutionized pop culture. His voice, dance moves, and visual storytelling set the standard for modern entertainment. Jackson married twice, first to Lisa Marie Presley, daughter of Elvis Presley, and later to Debbie Rowe, with whom he had 2 children. He would go on to raise 3 kids, Prince, Paris, and Blanket. Despite the controversy that surrounded his personal life, Jackson remained a devoted father, often shielding his children from public attention. A fun fact about Jackson is that he holds 13 Grammy Awards and 39 Guinness World Records, including most successful entertainer of all time. He was also the first artist to have a top 10 hit in 5 different decades. The mourning after his death was global, from candlelight vigils in Los Angeles to tributes across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Michael Jackson's passing marked not only the end of a life, but the silencing of what was once a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon. Whitney Houston, August 9, 1963 through February 11, 2012. On February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston was found unresponsive in the bathtub of her Beverly Hilton hotel room, just hours before she was scheduled to attend a pre-Grammy party. The official cause was accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. She was only 48 years old. Whitney Houston's voice was often described as a once-in-a-generation gift. With soaring power and flawless range, she became one of the most decorated female artists in music history. Her hits included I Will Always Love You, Greatest Love of All, and How Will I Know. She sold over 200 million records worldwide and won 6 Grammy Awards, cementing her legacy as The Voice. Houston was married to R&B singer Bobby Brown from 1992 to 2007, a relationship marked by both love and turbulence. Together, they had 1 daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, whose tragic death in 2015 mirrored her mother's in heartbreaking ways. A fun fact is that Whitney Houston Houston still holds the record for the most consecutive #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 by a female artist, 7 in a row. Her performance of The Star-Spangled Banner at the 1991 Super Bowl remains one of the most iconic renditions ever delivered. Her death sent shockwaves through the music world. For many, Whitney's story became a tragic reminder of how even the brightest stars can burn out too soon, leaving behind brilliance mixed with sorrow.